Hey, everybody. Welcome. Thank you. I'm gonna put a timer on. All right, cool. So yeah, thanks for coming to my big talk. It's called Life After Dave and Buster's. And it's about well, I'll just kind of unfurl as it goes what it's about. It's sort of about entertainment and how it relates to gaming and entertainment spaces and all that stuff. And I'll start out by talking about not like case studies, but like just generally, if you don't know what my company is, we do electronics in interactive spaces and the systems that run those interactive spaces, and we've been doing it for a while. We do a lot of stuff for whatever advertising, trade shows, mechanical stuff, visuals, LED mapping, interactive stuff like that, and then in the world of live pop star world, we do radio control, lighting stuff that's like hasn't been um, there's no like established solution for it yet. We'll help them figure out how to do something in the world. So stuff for Taylor Swift or Lady Gaga, all just little motion, little lighting, a lot of radio control, and then these are just like these spaces that over the past couple of years we've helped build that are kind of in the interactive, like psychedelic museum category, like that are have like some kinetic moving stuff, some lighting stuff, and then in the gadget advertising world, more wearable stuff and more lighting stuff like that. There's drag race stuff and robotic bartender for ourselves for our party, uh, which is something we've worked on over the past bunch of years, and it's great. It works really well. That's a yeah, um, yeah, VR toaster and lighting, more lighting, and we work with a really great inflatable company called Newhouse. They do really crazy inflatables. Okay, that's that. And then separately, I teach at Columbia, and they hired me to teach AR and VR there a couple years ago, like in 2020. Oh yeah, thanks. Um, in like 2020, they hired me to teach AR and VR, and it was when a lot of money was going into AR and VR during like kind of the pandemic. It was a lot of the most stuff happened. So I started teaching it there, and I realized like it was a little less relevant to what I was interested in and what I thought was kind of like important about this kind of digital space. So I kind of changed the definition of AR to be alternate realities. Like, so I stopped teaching the AR and VR stuff. I didn't tell them, I just stopped teaching it, and I started teaching how you like what a game engine is and how we were doing that a little already, but like what's the point of it, right? You're creating another world that's an alternate world, and that world and our physical world connect in some way, either through a keyboard and a mouse or through whatever, a camera or APIs or anything. So those two things relate, and it's an interesting relationship. All right. So side note, not related to anything else in the talk, but I kind of stopped doing the AR VR stuff because I was like, it's not really changing in an interesting way right now. But then this thing happened. This is like 3 weeks ago. Read this article where totally unrelated to the rest of the talk, but I think it might be worth rethinking AR soon because they just came up with this little device that if you have a person that has vision and they go blind, that you can implant this little photovoltaic device in their retina, and then they basically wear a camera on their head, and they wear a little projector that projects into their eye onto their retina using infrared light, and it can transmit images in grayscale to their eye. So people like in this BBC radio thing I heard about it, she's like, "Yeah, I'm doing the crossword again now. It's pretty sweet. I'm doing the Sudoku after being blind." So not related to anything else, but this is really cool. It's from 2 weeks ago. It just happened. And it's going to mean a lot for like when you think about future projections of AI and contact lenses and stuff. This is before the contact lenses, and it's way further. It's literally beaming directly into your brain. It's like a cochlear implant, right? But for visuals. So for here in the world of people who do visuals, interesting, right? Okay, cool. Now segue into the point of the talk, which is apart from all that other stuff that we've done at Smooth, this year there's been one big theme, and it's really hard to ignore it as a trend. And it's the trend towards games, like straight up games. we've made these interactive spaces for a long time, and people are going in and loosely interacting with it. There's interactive elements, but it's gone more towards a straight up game, and there's a difference between those two things. Just kind of run through what these games were. This is something for a Comic-Con where you're turning into a superhero. So 3 different versions of these room scale games that, yeah, have a screen arguably, or maybe don't have a screen. Like if you think about an escape room, we used to run escape rooms on Unity. So we'd have a game, but with no video, no screen, but it's the game running through the game engine, right? This thing, and this is relevant to later, this one we made for Austin City Limits, where it's like the tour, but you're not the band, you're the roadie. And you are doing like roadie hero, amp hero, unloading. And you're unloading the trucks and you're getting them to the right stage. And it's like, and it's good. It turned out fun, but it's like a work simulator, right? At the same time. Okay, and then the last one, this is something just on the side of like fully physical game where you're shooting like these physical foam balls at these physical targets. It's all running through graphics through Unity and stuff like that. This is at a big video game tournament. And then this is another one that's like taking the Meow Wolf Otherworld like experiential museum and making it into a discrete games that you play. You buy 90 minutes, you go play game by game, and it's look at how psychotic that is. But it's cool. It's really cool. And those are these things that are hard to ignore. That was all this year, and it was just one after another getting asked to make games that are either literal video games in a video game cabinet to it's a room that plays like a video game, but there's no screen. But they're all same thing. So we're like, okay, cool. What is the deal with that? What is that a part of? And so just kind of quickly go through. Oh, yeah, right. I keep forgetting the order I did this in, but this is a book called The Experience Economy. It's really good. It's from 1999 or 98, and I highly recommend it. And it talks about the value of experience in like pretty discrete terms. And the most clear thing that they say is this: uh, the value we put on experience. If you have a cup of coffee, oh, perfect, like this one. The cost of buying the beans in this from a farmer is like 10 cents in beans because that's a commodity. If you get those beans and you roast them and you put them in a bag and you put a label on it and you sell it, it goes from 20 cents to 80 cents or whatever. I'm getting the numbers wrong. Whatever it is, it goes up. If you then take them out of that bag and you grind them up and you brew coffee and you serve it to somebody, now that's $1.50 or $2. But if you do that same thing at Starbucks, it's $8 because there's cushy chairs, there's music playing. You can buy the CDs for the music on the counter. Oh wait, no, you can't do that anymore. But like, there's an experience wrapped around it that now makes the price go to $6 for a cup of coffee, and it's the experience is what you're paying for. And there's and so I'm gonna like take the sort of like large area room scale experience and look at it 2 examples and talk about what's different about them. And the first one is this place, the Guggenheim, which is this really, really beautiful building with like, established art that everyone agrees is like this stuff's important because it wouldn't be here if it weren't important. And you can have a transformative experience there, and it's all very thought through. That's space number 1. And then space number 2 is this one, Dave & Buster's, where it's, I don't know, like a child casino with and a lot of screens and a lot of sports, and it's loud and it's dirty. But there is something that is different about these new spaces. This is it. When you walk into the Guggenheim, you experience the art. Maybe there's an element to it that's interactive. Like maybe there's a visual thing that moves as you move or something like that, or lights up as a person comes in the room. So it knows the person's there. But it doesn't know if it's you or you or you, and it just doesn't care. It does not have any concept. You're completely anonymous in that space. But when you go into Dave & Buster's, you go and you give them money and you get a card. And that card is your identity card in this world. And you carry it around with you, and it has associated with it things like your place in the economy. Like how many tickets you got for the ticket redemption area. You got your scores, your high scores, like we have on the leaderboard for this event here. Like you have like a meritocratic, like social place that's separate from your economic status there. And that follows you around from game to game. Like you are you. I mean, you are the you of Dave and Buster's. It can be a different you than the rest of the world, but in there, like you actually have an identity, and everybody else there does too, and it knows it's you. That's really different than the Guggenheim. It's a really different experience. No value judgment on either of those. So okay. So that I brought up Dave and Buster's covered. We're not going to talk about it anymore. That was just bait to get you into. Just kidding. No, I'm going to go into the whole thing of the Dave and Buster's is not new, and it is really successful. It's actually super successful. It had like a dip during the pandemic, but it's back to being really successful. And so I started like after doing all these games this year, going there. You know, the one in Atlantic Center and the one in Times Square, and they were not nice. We went like on a work exploratory trip, and St. We lasted like 20 minutes. You were like, I hate this. I hate this so much. Take my car. But it's an old tradition, and like there's really like there's a rich history to it, and the concepts that are in it have been there for a long time. Like this is the 1893 World's Fair, the one where they did the light bulb for the first time, and they had this area called the Midway. And the Midway was like literally the name of this park, pre-World's Fair, where they had all these kind of like quick, cheap experience games. And the Midway is like what we still call that. In fact, Dave and Buster's calls their gaming area the $1 Million Midway, referred to like literally this physical spot in Chicago where it first happened. And those games would be games of skill and games of chance. Two different things. A lot of the games of skill were completely rigged and fake and just games of chance with like a person inside it hooking you up. I mean, it was a great little cash grab. But that after that World's Fair, these and as like sort of like the industrialization got better, people started saying, let's make these smaller, make them repeatable, and they started becoming what we think of as arcades now, like the rolly ball thing is a perfect example. The proto pinball, the illegalization of pinball because it was gambling in the 40s. This is like prohibition style smashing a pinball machine with a hammer. It's really cool. And then from that, like to pinball to the beginning of like the world that most of us probably occupy, where we're starting to like make innovations in visualization, these like early projection based proto video games. And this one, if you ever have a chance to see this, if you're at CES, if you're ever in Las Vegas at the Pinball Museum there, they have this game. And it's mechanical cars with like a Pepper's Ghost that superimposes this layer of cars over your car on a road. It's really, really cool. And these like chain drive cars go up and down. Anyway, then we get into the world that we know, the screen. The screen came in and essentially became the most important place in the world, the TV screen. It was just the absolute transformation of our relationship to the whole world in that moment. And that turned us into the world of video games that got really popular. There was a big early 1980s bubble of video games where they were on the cover of Life magazine, and something important happened there that was different than all these other games that were before it. And that was this right here, the leaderboard. This company they were in like Kansas? I can't remember where this place was, but it was like the big video game place, and they kept track of all the records of everybody who played played Donkey Kong and Pac-Man and all that. And it took the individual aspect of playing a video game and made it social. It made it so now everyone is connected through this game outside of the screen, in addition to being an individual playing on the screen. And that relationship of like parallel play, but as a group, kind of appeared for the first time. And it's a really big concept in gaming. Next thing that happened right after that was the very first game to have a continue button, which means your existence, like your identity, now lasts for more than one session of the game. It persists. So like your persistent identity is starting to actually be a concept. This one, Moon Patrol also did that, and this one they also did the first like parallax motion. So in addition to you existing in this world in a continuous way, that world now has like depth and 3D to it, like actually taking you to a world that looks a little bit more like a moving camera, like our world. This is pretty early on. And then this one came on, Gauntlet. And this one, you could never, if you could keep putting quarters in and it would never end, you could play forever. You could never leave. Like you could play Gauntlet for eternity. And it did something in addition to like letting you keep your identity and not lose it during the like that game. It also created like um, a conspicuous consumption mechanism to like exhibit your wealth. Because if you were the person on Gauntlet for a really long time, you were rich. It was incredible. I mean, which is like that's why Bentleys exist. You know what I mean? It's like a big thing in our world. Um, but all these things had something. They kind of missed something. They're pretty short lived. They didn't really have much of a narrative arc. Uh, and it also wasn't for everybody. Like there was a specific group of people who got famous being really good at Pac-Man or whatever, but like not everyone really liked it. It was, skill-based, hard, maybe annoying, not for everyone. Okay, so then enter these guys, Dave and Buster. So they were both like owning bars and kind of like gaming spaces when they met. And that's Dave, I think. That's Buster. And I think I relate to Dave more. My name is Dave. Well, Dave. But Buster had this bar called Buster's. Great, right? I guess if your name is Buster, it's pretty obvious, right? But Dave had this place called Slick Willie's Family. Whoa, that's so much cooler. And also, it reaches me because I grew up in Maryland, and there's another very famous penis-themed family restaurant there called Big Pecker's Bar and Grill. That like I just remember in middle school seeing kids with this shirt on and being like, "What the hell is this world?" Anyway, um, so they said let's embrace this whole thing. Let's make sure we have games that are skill based, so people can come in and compete if they want to, and then let's have games that are chance based because that's the level playing field. If something is based on luck, everybody walks in with the exact same amount of luck. I mean, I believe that. I don't know. You guys can different. That's fine. But it really democratized it. It meant like anyone could play any of these games. They said, let's embrace this whole idea of your identity, where you can go from game to game. The economy, the class system, basically your meritocratic like leaderboard class, and then your how many tickets do I have class, and obviously as time went on, other data about that. And then, oh, okay, let's talk about these for a second. You got your Big Bass wheel. I'm not sure what about it makes it bass related, but this is called the Big Bass wheel. Plinko, which is a cool example. I'll bring it back later. And then this is the one I think broke you, Sachem, when we were there, Spinner Frenzy, where you go up and you spin a fidget spinner.
Last 5 seconds.
That's it. Yeah, you put it all in and you spin a fidget spinner once. Then they have their skill-based games still. There's more of that. The one on the left is a modern Dave and Buster's one. It's actually pretty cool looking. All right, and then here's something that they do that I think is like really worth pointing to, which is that they've created a world. You have an identity in that world. You have a social class in that world. You have an economic class in that world, and you also have a means of fulfillment when you go and fulfill the tickets that you got at the prize booth. And the prize booth almost perfectly mirrors Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It says level 1, survival. Candy, pure calories. You will live on this. Level 2, you've gone from surviving to thriving. You have plates and cups and stuff, which means you have the food and liquid to put in them. You have maybe a kitchen to keep them in. Next level, entertainment, little Nintendo DSs and stuff like that. you have now leisure time. You've got to eat up that leisure time with your entertainment, and then finally love and joy the stuffed animals. And there is no self-actualization. Okay, so here's all right. Here's where it gets interesting, I think. So you go into Dave and Buster's, and I'm just going now a couple times, like started looking around and thinking about what is everyone doing here? What are they actually doing when I look at them? And you realize like they're walking around, pulling levers, pushing buttons, and you're like, it kind of looks like factory work, actually. It kind of looks like a job. And, and in this case, if that's true, you're going in and you're paying to go work the machines to bring them a profit. Like you're not a player, you're an employee when you walk into Dave & Buster's. And like I started seeing everything like that. And I started looking around and saying, every game here is a job. And people are just pretending to do that job. It's like nothing. That's interesting. Uh, okay, so then if that's the case, and they're going and paying to work, uh, your next question is why? Like, why is that popular? Why are they doing it? That's a great question. That's a question with like a hard answer that I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer very well. Like, what's the point? Well, it's easy to understand why like the skill games are popular because you've got your like universal, anyone can get lucky American Dream type thing. The chance games, and then skill games a little harder to come by. Uh, and there's a few like psychological principles that are happening in there on these chance games that I think is like really addictive to people. First off is this idea of the near miss in great magazine, Journal of Gambling Studies. So in life, when you're learning things and you do something that's pretty close, like learning archery and getting close to the bullseye, your brain says, hey, we got pretty close. Let's pretty much do that same thing again. And maybe now we move it a little to the left. Like you actually can learn. But if you're applying that same logic, and our brain does, to roulette, you might pick 33. You put your money on 33, and 34 comes up, and you say, man, I was so close. The truth is, you were close. You were not closer than you were to 2 or 6. It was a random draw of a number. But it's impossible to separate that thought from in your mind. And so in this near miss study from the 80s, this researcher was like, let's make a slot machine that has like 3 green bars. The idea of the what he calls the determination of outcome, like the slow reveal of what's going to happen, is something that really kind of is sticky with us. Like we want to see what's going to happen. It's kind of like if you were to go to a horse race and the leader started off as the leader and was the leader the whole time, most people wouldn't say, wow, that was a great race. Or a football game that is like a total blowout the entire game. By the end of the game, the stands will be pretty much empty because the outcome's been determined. And like we kind of thrill at that, at watching that outcome. And Plinko is a great example of that. It's a totally, at this point, completely random where the little puck goes down. It's not even like in Price is Right where you get to kind of shuffle left and right and drop it in. And watching it slowly trickle down is something that we like. And then there's one other thing that's really, that's another study from the 80s. Everything in this is from the 80s, by the way. Dave & Buster's, 1982. This concept of frustration theory, which is like, when we do something and we don't get the outcome we want, a lot of times we want to do it more. And it's actually totally practical because that's kind of we can think about that, but that impulse is like way older than like conscious thinking. It's something that is in rabbits or in coyotes or whatever. But if you try something and you keep trying it, even though you don't get the outcome you want, we call that persistence actually. And like persistence leads to like higher level gains and survival and things like that in our life. Uh, and and that's yeah, there's like I don't know. You guys have like a chicken missile? No, no. This is real. B.F. Skinner, like behavioral psychologist guy, the Skinner box, like learned, train chickens to pack stuff, pack collars and stuff by rewarding them. Made this missile guided system that you would put a chicken in. Oh, sorry. Yeah, chicken or pigeon. It was a pigeon, sorry. And we train the pigeons to like basically be able to look at a screen and peck the direction of a light on the screen. And his idea was like, let's put these pigeons in a missile. And we'll just shine a really bright light on the thing we want to shoot the missile at and have the pigeon have a camera on and be able to aim the missile. And they didn't actually do it, but it worked. Like it would have totally worked. But they didn't do it. Okay. Meaning making time. Let's see how I'm doing. Oh, okay, great. So, right. Okay, cool. So I guess um, that's a little explanation to why it's popular and stuff. But the talk is called Life After Dave and Buster's, so I'm supposed to say like what's coming next. And I think there's some indications that are interesting. Some are like more, I don't know, some are more just really happening now, and some are more just my guess. And the ones that's happening now is like our world of immersive ability is coming into Dave and Buster's and other spaces like it in a pretty strong way. This place here is called uh, Level 99. It's up in Boston, and it's screenless video game that you play with your body. There's 40 rooms or whatever, and you go through and you play for a couple hours. It's actually great. It's really fun. And then this is Dave and Buster's approximation of it. They're doing a version of that kind of thing. There's another thing called Activate. Same idea. It's a bunch of like interactive rooms where you play a game. This thing's called Cosm. It's like gigantic projection IMAX thing, but just with a bar. So it's like a sports bar that really does make you feel like you're at the game. So in this case, they're bringing a game somewhere else to you, to the Dave and Buster's. In these cases, they're bringing you at Dave and Buster's like to another like reality there where you are physically brought to the game. And then this one's interesting. At Dave and Buster's, like you can now bet if you're because you can bet on sports and stuff now. If you're with your friend playing skee ball, you can say to your friend, "Hey, I bet you $5, I'll get a better score than you on skee ball." And Dave and Buster's is like, wouldn't you rather than bet with your friend and like whoever wins pays the other person? Wouldn't you rather do that through the Dave and Buster's app so we know your bet? And I mean, they announced this last year. I haven't found any evidence that like anyone's been able to place a bet yet, but they really want that because we do also like voluntarily want to give up our information about this stuff somehow. All right. And then, so that's like the small signs of things that are happening that are like new styles of types of entertainment. But there's another thing that I think that is brought up in the experience economies is from 30 years ago that they say probably will be after the experience economy, what the sort of next level of event or whatever, something, I don't even know the word for it, event economy would be. And they say that after experience, the next logical thing is what they call transformation. So this exists already. Like we do have businesses that run on the idea of transformation, like management consulting. It's like you hire them to come into your business and transform how it works. And you're not paying them for the service, you're paying them for the result. You're paying them for the transformation you'll have. And also a simpler example would be a personal trainer. Personal trainer, you go in, you're with, and then they turn you into a monster. And you're paying for that transformation into the Hulk, not for the tips they give you or anything like that. It's a much bigger picture of it. And so the next step after experience economy could be the transformation economy. How that relates to Dave and Buster's, it's pretty vague, but, and it's hard to imagine this at Dave and Buster's, right? But they are something from the experience economy. A transformation economy would mean you go there and you come out a different person. Disney, like, I'm sorry, I won't, this is a really grotesque slide, sorry. Disney describes like their what their product, not really in terms of like an experience. It's more like a memory. Like you go to Disney to get a memory that you'll always have. That's a deep way of thinking about it, and it's a bit in that direction of like the transformation. Okay, last thing is on the note of like, you know, I can't like predict the future and stuff, but I don't have to predict the future because Marshall McLuhan already predicted the future, and he's pretty much right. He said when we moved from radio to TV and more like fractured media, we went from early on an era where there was a central voice. There was like a central story that we all circle around. And that story doesn't have to be true. It's like if you think about Stalin's central story, it wasn't the reality of the world, but it was the central narrative that everyone was working around. And when he said in this, McLuhan said in the 60s, like when TV came along and there's multiple channels and it's nonlinear, like you can switch between channels, and then now to our world of media, which obviously is incredibly fractured, right? Like a different media stream for each individual person. That loss of central narrative, he said, and I think it's really true, makes people yearn for like a collective because we exist as people because of that thing. We are different than cats, right? And he said, in addition to that sort of that yearning for our the collective, and which leads to like tribalism in any way we can, like grasping for any type of connection. He said that it leads to nostalgia. And like the working at Dave and Buster's thing to me seems like that type of nostalgia, where like Dave and Buster's is turning slowly into like a museum of jobs for jobs that in the next 50 years are not going to exist anymore. Like there won't be delivery drivers. Like, and Dave and Buster's will be the place you go to remember the industrial era when there were jobs and you had a function and you could do things that made a small difference to the society. And that's like pretty intense, right? But it's like hard to not see it. So, okay, here's the moral. The closest thing I got to a moral is that you know that fracturing of everyone into like individuals in terms of like control is really convenient, right? It's like way easier to control people as individuals than to let them gain power as forming a group. So it's like as a pretty obvious motivation for profit for companies, etc., to want to do that. And it's at odds with our natural way of being and the way we've existed as humans for the long period of human existence, even before that, like back to wolves and stuff. So that, but we like Dave and Buster's in a kind of dirty, cheesy way is actually serving that purpose. And also a lot of the work that a lot of us do also serves that purpose to bring people together. And so that's the point at the end of the day is there's a part of what we do that is intending to bring people together and it's a need of people. It's a need now more than ever. And so it should be inspiring to say, wow, we're in a position where we can do that. And so we should do that. And that is the end of my slides. I think I did good on time too. Right?
So
Hi, thank you. Awesome talk. Everything. I'm looking forward to someone's PhD thesis. Everything is data clusters. Something that I've been seeing around more recently is this idea of betting on everything, like last week was the mayor's election and on taxi cabs and on all the street signs, there were like the real-time betting odds of the mayor's race, and it's like, we're getting to the point where it's like, can I bet on if Dave's talk is gonna go over time? Like, I'm curious, through of this talk, like, do you think that this is becoming such a trend because something is missing in people, or it's like, I mean, obviously, but like, is there any optimistic take that you can find in there and how that incorporates into experiential and like making experiences that people engage with?
Yeah, if you think about betting on a sports game,
Yeah.
let's say something that is like an undetermined outcome, but you can guess, right? And the odds are based on that guess. And that guess is based on an infinite amount of data. That's different than, is that different than betting on a coin toss? I'm not sure the answer to that. I think we are interested in that. There's probably some deep reasons why we're interested in that. Like, if we think we can outsmart the system because we're capable of making sense of all of that myriad of data, then we have an edge. That is the idea. Like, that's sort of like also the thing that AI does is like it can take all this sort of semi-meaningless data and make meaning out of it. So there's that, but there's also the fact that we like the drama of gambling a little bit. So there's that too. But it's an interesting one because those things, I mean, recently in sports, there was a big scandal, right? Where one of the NBA players played 9 minutes and his friend just happened to bet like $1 million or whatever that his friend, the NBA player, would only play 9 minutes. And at 9 minutes, the guy was like, "Oh, I got a tummy ache. I can't," you know. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's really interesting. Basically, it's my only answer. Yeah.
I just wanted to push up on that because I think that is nothing new. 20 years ago, I was with Cinque Terre, one of the most isolated places in Italy. And very, very, not much technology anywhere. But there was a friend who was taking boulders and building up the ski wall. And every field would drop. You know, all these old men that were just sitting there going, all of them betting with each other, the next boulder was going to drop or not. I think that's something that's been universal.
Totally.
In this result. But the one thing I did want to ask you about though, because this is something that came up in their talk yesterday that really interested me, is how as technology advances, how that nostalgia, the search for analog, the search for, the escape from technology permanently. How do you see that trend playing into gaming and how to play it? Because I think that's really interesting. Your talk, for instance, they were talking about how the aesthetic of the youngest generations who grew up with technology, grew up with AI, grew up with
Totally.
pervasive screens everywhere. How they're now going to 8-bit, low res,
Sure.
and then my generation was punk, and it was like Xerox copies.
Yeah.
And how that was. So
It's probably, I mean, similar to the nostalgia for the work, like for industrial work. It reminds you of a time where you felt like you had control, probably, and that's probably comforting. I think probably like the simplification of like older, more rudimentary visual aesthetics probably has a bit of that too. It seems more approachable because you can kind of see under the hood when you're seeing pixels. Probably there's that aspect of that. But yeah, I mean, McLuhan's idea is that like all that nostalgia comes from our loss of like community, basically.
Hey, so thinking more about the nostalgia thing, and I'm curious, like, was there stuff in the research you did about, us all sort of wanting to tap into our childhood and like pretend we're adults doing jobs? Because I feel like that's a real thing that kids do. Like, I was thinking my kid when they first got their like Oculus thing, and the game they wanted to play was like
Job
game,
simulator. Yeah.
job imitator thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's like working
Yeah.
in an office with like
Yeah.
And I think kids want to too, right? So like,
Totally.
is it us like wanting to be kids pretending we're adults?
That's probably true. Yeah, I mean, Dave and Buster's is that, right? It's the arcade for adults where you can drink and stuff, and eat wings. But yeah, I think I'm sure that's there. Yeah. But it is interesting though that Dave & Buster's is expressly for adults. And that is probably true for some people, but I do think for some people it is a bit more of a desire to fit into a world that's like kind of disappearing. That's nostalgia too. But I think you're totally right. I'm sure both of things are there.
Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Just one final question, and I'm curious about your perspective on some, like, especially with that transformation. It almost feels like a lot of the move towards the psychedelic spaces, Meow Wolf adjacent stuff. Uh, like, I'm curious, like, what your thoughts on what parts of that industry and those experiences that you're really excited about, and what parts of that you think maybe, you have hesitation about.
There's one of the things we did earlier this year is called Game Grounds, and it's Otherworld is like probably a close second to Meow Wolf in terms of those. It's really good. It's in Columbus, and we opened this thing called Game Grounds that's gamified, very different in your interaction with it. You pay for a time slot. There's games. You have a score, leaderboard, and all that stuff. So like you have more of the Dave & Buster's type identity in it. Whereas in Meow Wolf, you have real anonymity. It's more like the Guggenheim, like that. Although they do have some concept at Yale of like a some sort of collecting points. But that's two really different types of interaction. Your anonymity or your accountability. And those are like those appeal to different people in different ways. In the same way that like games of skill and games of chance appeal to different people. So and I know what we're thinking about in that world now is like, is there a hybrid version like Dave & Buster's, where there are elements that if you want to do accrue points, accrue value and stuff like that, because you like joining this society economy thing, you can. But also if you want to just like go and wig out looking at projections and stuff, you can just do that too. Some people would really they're like, yeah, that part rules. So I think having something, if you look at Dave & Buster's and you're like, they kind of made it so a lot of different people can walk in there and I'll be like, yeah, I like that part of it. They have something there. So that's probably, I guess. Probably, I guess.